In this week's episode, we talked to a CEO who started as a real estate agent and found a niche in the virtual assistant space. In 2021, he was on the Inc. 5000, one of the top fastest growing companies in America, based on his virtual assistant business. Let's jump right into this week's episode of the LA Business Podcast. Welcome to the LA Business Podcast, your destination to hear stories of how businesses grow and scale. I'm Robert Brill, CEO of Brill Media and the host of this podcast. Now, let's jump right into this week's interview. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the LA Business Podcast. Today our guest is Pavel Stepanov, CEO of Virtudesk. Virtudesk is a 700 employee company. Pavel grew it without any outside funding. And he's included on the 2021 Inc. 5000. Congratulations on that.
Thank you, Robert.
Welcome. Thanks for being on the show. Tell us a little bit about Virtudesk. What do you do and why did you start it?
Well, Virtudesk is a virtual assistant company. We basically provide remote employees for small and medium-sized businesses. Our remote employees are located in the Philippines, and usually small businesses outsource their tasks to the Philippines, and we provide those employees who can handle the work for them. Why did I start it? It actually started out more of a as a side hustle. While I was actually doing real estate full time back in 2015, and the reason I started, first I started hiring virtual assistants myself for my real estate business. And then agents in my sphere were actually asking for the same type of help. So I was just basically being an altruist, trying to help them out, trying to find them virtual assistants by, contacting people in the Philippines I knew who could work for them. And that slowly but surely kind of transpired into the entity where we started to provide those people to agents on a larger scale.
And what are some of the components? How do you grow a virtual assistant business?
Well, to grow the virtual assistant business, you got to have a great team in place, right people at the right places, so to say. You obviously need to have your, a lot of components, tackled, from recruiting to operations to management, marketing, sales team. You gotta basically have all those components already in place. So once you do that, you can definitely scale and grow the business, I guess.
And when you're thinking about the business,
Mhm.
how long did it take you to get to 700 employees?
Well, we are in our 6th year. So last December we were celebrating 5-year anniversary.
Mhm.
So I'd say 2020 to 2021 were like the biggest growth years for us,
Mhm.
especially 2020, when a lot of folks went to work remotely.
Mhm.
And that's where we really grew, because we were able to provide services to a wide range of people. At the same time, a lot of companies in the Philippines shut down their doors of the call centers because of the pandemic. So we were able to, since we were set up essentially for work from home from the beginning, even before the pandemic, so a lot of people who were fired or laid off from the call centers, we were able to hire them to work for us.
Mhm.
So we actually scooped up a lot of great talent, and a lot of people who realized that, a lot of companies realized that right now the work from home was more of a norm than an exception.
Mhm.
That's when we're also able to scale our services to broader audience than just real estate agents.
So you must have people in the Philippines, right? Like, uh, how do you scoop up the talent? You must have people on the ground there, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, we have a huge team there. We have a recruiting team. We have a marketing team to market our company to potential employees. Talent acquisition team that actually work in. We receive like an average probably 800 resumes a day that we interview, and we have to sift.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot, and because nobody's paying them, to stay home, so they are looking for jobs.
Mhm.
Looking for jobs, and we hire a lot of people. So that's a really big segment right now of outsourcing, because Philippines is basically kind of like used to be in all the time major outsourcing hub for Fortune 500 companies.
Mhm.
Now it's available to the main street, not just the Wall Street, I guess. You
Right.
know, yeah.
I also understand culturally there's a lot of cultural overlap, between people in the Philippines and the United States. Is that something that you found?
Well, overlap as far as, yeah, because of out of all the Asian countries, Philippines probably the most westernized, I would say,
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
sense that they used to be the U.S. colony,
Mm.
and the influence is still there. The Western influence. It starts from the language, because English language is the official language of the Philippines.
Mhm.
Basically, all official documentation is in English. They have their own languages as well, the Tagalog, but language and
Mhm.
the cultural influence is still there. It's actually present.
Mhm.
Uh, Besides people who work in the industry of call centers,
Mhm.
they already exposed to U.S. culture by working in the U.S. companies like American Express, the Bank of
Mhm.
America, Wells Fargo. So they do know how to work with American public.
How does a company know it's right for, a virtual of having a virtual staff? Like, what are some of the characteristics of companies that you see do really well with, virtual staffing?
Well, a lot of companies right now actually figuring that out, that actually virtual staff could be a game changer for them, because you're able to get a global talent pool, get into the global talent pool, people who with college degrees, certain education and experience, who are going to be costing you the fraction of what you would pay somebody in the United States, because in the US you have to compete on a wage scale, on a wage level, a lot. You have to pay way more people than somebody else would.
Mhm.
Whereas here you pay significantly less. At the same time, you're able to scale people who have good work ethics and people who would work for you remotely. Because right now, with the way technology works, you can hire people anywhere, across town or across the globe.
Right.
So yeah, we do a lot of outreach and education for business owners on how to work with the remote staff. We have a great Facebook community group for that. Leverage, it's called, and people can join. And usually, they find a lot of tips and information how to do it. We also provide certain education for business owners on how to scale that. We also go to expos and trade shows and host. Like workshops and teach people how to do it. So we trying to do that at a bigger scale to educate the community about it as
A
well.
and does your Facebook group also serve as a marketing, tool for you?
It's not as much of a marketing tool, but I'd say more of a education and retention for us,
Mhm.
because when people go there, we not only talking about our company. We prefer not to. We actually prefer to talk in general how people can leverage the virtual assistants. So, even sometimes people talk about the competition that we have, which is fine. We don't ban that. That's okay, because we're trying to grow as a community and promote the whole idea of hiring virtual assistants than just specifically gearing them to our company. If they do, that's fine. But the intention is actually to grow it as a community and use more of a like a retention tool, where people who hire us, they sometimes what happens when a customer comes to us, hires a virtual assistant, and they don't know what tasks to assign to the virtual assistant. So what happens is the person just ends up like canceling the service or firing virtual assistant, not because virtual assistant did something wrong, but because they simply don't know what tasks to assign. So our response to that was actually creating that community, Facebook community, where they can go there and learn from other people what tasks usually being assigned. So that's more like a light bulb for a
Mhm.
lot of people, where say, oh, okay, looks like I can do that. I can do those things. And we share a lot of, we do webinars, weekly webinars with different business owners who share what they're doing. It's been
Mhm.
recorded to our YouTube and podcast, so people understand more how they can scale and how they can utilize virtual assistant. And instead of like canceling, they end up growing their business and they end up actually hiring more people, which helps them and obviously helps us in the long run.
So it seems like a retention tool much more than a marketing tool, which
That's
arguably
right.
is
Yeah.
marketing as well, yeah.
I mean, you can
Um,
say that. Yeah.
yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I get it. Like, it's not for people who don't know about virtual assistants, it's for people who've already made the decision to actually use it, and you wanna make sure that they have a great experience with you guys.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you do you distinguish between virtual assistants and, like, virtual executives? And what I mean by that is, when the phrasing often, like, I see a lot of phrasing on Facebook about virtual assistants. And virtual assistants, an assistant is oftentimes doesn't have primary responsibility within the business, but certainly you could argue that the person who, with the right talent, it doesn't have to just be an assistant level person. It can actually be a middle or senior executive within the organization, just someone who
Oh yeah.
just doesn't
Of
live,
course.
it doesn't go to your office. Do you distinguish in that? And how do you like set that? How do you price that out? Like, how do
Well,
you?
I'll
Yeah.
tell you what we do as the company. We have managerial staff here in the United States and also in the Philippines. We
Mhm.
have account managers there. We have operations manager. We have training director of training there. So obviously we do that. And for example, our marketing team, the director of marketing is here in the office in Washington State. Also, she has her subordinates, or also not just only assistants, but uh, marketing assistants are in the Philippines.
Mhm.
So they sometimes actually make more of a executive decisions for her when
Mhm.
she's not, let's say, available or something is going on. That we do distinguish that. Obviously, if somebody wants to hire more of a manager for their operation, they can be a virtual assistant, and obviously you can price out a little bit higher.
Mhm.
The way to do it is to have certain, you got to have a clear picture of your business as far as how your business operates.
Mhm.
You got to have standard operating procedures. You got to have clear understanding of what those people will be doing for you. And sometimes when people come to us, they don't have that. I mean, I'd say probably about 70% of business owners don't have that. So we help them actually come up with that, and they hire first an admin. That admin person can actually grow into a manager position within the organization of the customer.
Mhm.
And once they do that, they can actually start bringing more people to work for them. Like for example, we have one of the major startups here in Seattle that hired only like a couple people at first. Now they grew to about 15, 16 people with us.
Mhm.
It's a real estate startup. They are funded. I think they're in Series C right now,
Mhm.
and they also, the first person that they hired to work for them initially, it was a couple of years ago. This person right now grew to be an account manager for them. She's located in the Philippines, so she's managing other virtual assistants who are working for the company, and basically reporting to the person in the United States. So that's basically the way to do it. Yeah, I mean, you can obviously do that, and pricing gonna be obviously higher because this person takes on more of a managerial role, and responsibilities are a little bit different than just assistant.
And how do what really resonates with what you said is the need for a standard operating procedure. That's very important for us. We do media buying and advertising, and we started to grow pretty darn fast once we had a standard operating procedure
Oh, you do?
and
I don't know.
and
Yeah.
folks to implement it. So I'm a big. I have nothing to sell on standard operating procedures and operations, but I'm a big advocate for it as I talk to other business owners and entrepreneurs because it's so critical, and that's a driver of growth, and it allows you in one of the benefits. To your point, is it allows you to take advantage of virtual assistants who might be less expensive
Exactly, yeah.
and have the ability to kind of do exactly what you need them to do. So what do you think? Tell us about 2020, 2021. Like, what were you seeing in the marketplace as you were growing? Like, what were companies telling you as the marketplace shifted, and how did you react to that?
Well, when in March of 2020, when the lockdowns happened and everybody went to remote,
Mhm,
nobody knew what the hell was going on
mhm,
because it never happened. Some people were comparing it to like thought it's going to be a crash of whole economy. Some people thought that's going to be the end of everything. Some people saw it more of a, like a singular event, like 9/11, instead of like a 2008 housing
mhm,
crash. So, but I mean, I spoke with a lot of business owners. I spoke with a lot of CEOs of different levels. And nobody knew what was going on, what to expect. So that alone kind of nobody knew. And what we try to understand also at the same time, what are we going to do with our setup? We were already set up to work from home. So we first experienced like about 15% rate of cancellation on the first week of those lockdowns across
mm,
the country. Because so what I did, I got on the phone with everybody who we had from the customers, and we try to understand what was going on and how we can help them. And then we started to educate people, as far as like, okay, so here's the thing: you still got to do your business, still got to work. Okay, your customers will be there anyway because okay, everybody's at home, but they're not going anywhere. So and then at about 3 4 weeks, we experienced like a growth, like extraordinary growth in sign up rate. So
mhm,
people who first canceled came back to us, say, okay, I want to hire more people. I was like, okay, something's going on here.
mhm,
So then we saw that businesses actually started to pivot,
mhm,
started to going more of a online. And once you go online, once you actually, like, for example, I'll give you the example of real estate agents. Okay, real estate agents, they were they used to work in face to face with the customer. So Zoom came into play, and with Zoom, people realized they can have face to face on Zoom with a lot more people than they actually would be by going face to face meeting with customers at the door. So, and when that happens, the use of a virtual assistant comes very handy because that person would actually help you more in the background of running your business.
right.
And that's what a lot of, I think, realization came to people, like, look, we actually gonna actually grow more in this environment, and that happened. So that was an interesting uh, time, let's put it this way.
Right.
And we basically utilized it, used that opportunity to grow our business and to really scale it, and we made it to Inc. 5000 list.
How do you intend to continue that growth in 2022?
Well, we've actually put the robust, teams in place for marketing, for sales. We also exploring other industries besides real estate. We have the tremendous team that works, on PR campaigns. We basically becoming like emerging as one of the leaders in virtual assistant world right now, where the a saying goes, you first you work for your reputation, and then your reputation works for you. So I think we got to the point where reputation is actually works for us, and people come to us when they already know that they have the need for that. So that actually, I think it's a tremendous milestone for any company, because we work hard and we've actually value our reputation and partnerships with people that we have. So that actually alone, we expect probably double the last year's revenue in 2022, at least double that.
Hmm, amazing. And then and what types of marketing efforts are you deploying to kinda keep your business on that steady growth?
Well, the marketing effort, obviously, we have throughout a whole social media platforms. We are on Google, on also YouTube's. We're doing partnership with influencers. We are actually attending in-person events. I think next week we're going to our first in-person event of the year in Las Vegas. So um, last year we've attended, I think, like about 10 in-person events. So this year we're planning probably twice as much.
Mhm.
And at in-person events, you basically talk to people. We also going to be hosting workshops. We So that plus more of an educational, like private classes in the virtual world. Like right now, we partner up with EXP Realty. That's a virtual office. I mean, virtual brokerage, real estate brokerage company, EXP.
Mhm.
So right now we're there and we're in EXP World and going to be teaching more of educational classes. We've partnered up with some real estate coaches who are, you know, who are basically known out there, such as like Tom Ferry. If you're from LA, you probably know who I'm talking about.
Mhm.
So basically, with what we've done last year, plus a little bit more, yeah.
And a lot of your marketing is happening with your people from the Philippines, with your head of marketing in the United States. Yes, in Washington.
That's correct. Yes,
Nice.
and sales team is but also in the Philippines and in the United States in Washington. Yeah.
Mm.
So
And so Pavel, how can people find Virtudesk, the podcast, the group? Tell us a little bit about all the places people can find you guys.
oh yeah, it's simple. You can just go to myvirtuedesk.com. It's myvirtuedesk.com. You can go to our leverage Facebook. It's You can just type leverage in a Facebook, and you can find our group there and join the group and just learn what it's all about, how you can utilize. You can also find us on any major social media platform: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, anything. The podcast is also on, it's a Leverage Podcast. You can type Leverage Podcast and we're going to be there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Pavel Stepanov, CEO of Virtudesk. Thanks for being with us today. Thank you for listening to this episode of the LA Business Podcast. If you like what we're doing on this podcast, please consider subscribing on Apple or Google Play, leaving a 5-star review, and sharing with your friends. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations for a guest you'd like to hear on this podcast, please email me, robert@brillmedia.co. Thank you. Have a fantastic day.